हेलो स्टूडेंट्स, कैसे हैं आप। आज हम बात करेंगे यूनिट 2 ऑफ BSc नर्सिंग स्टूडेंट्स सेमेस्टर 7 and in this unit particularly there are three basic topic we are going to discuss. Subtopic one is a research problem, then there is a research objective, and then hypothesis. Okay, and I'll also discuss additional topic here, that is about the variable, because it is very important for student to understand that as well. Okay, let's start first with the research problem. So these are the learning objective for this particular unit. We'll try to understand the concept of research problem, objectives, as well as the variables and hypothesis. Identify and state the research problem and objectives. Enumerate the various characteristics of a good research problem and objective, and also try to discuss the concept related to the research variables, its types, as well as the importance. Now let's start with the first one, that is a research problem. Now the first and most important step in any research is to identify and delineate the research problem. That is what the researcher want to solve and what questions he or she wishes to answer. Research problem or a problem statement is something that researcher want to get an answer for that. It is a difficulty, for that there is no ready-made solution available and someone want to solve that problem. That we call a research problem. Let's talk about one or two important definition of research problem. So a problem is an interrogative statement or a sentence that asks what relation exists between two or more variables. The answer to the question will be provided what is having showed in the research, that is given by the Kallinger. So Kallinger says that research problem is nothing, it is a statement that talks about the relationship among the variables. Okay. Second definition, R.S. Woodworth says research problem as a situation for which we have no ready and successful response by instinct or by previously acquired habits. So as I told you in my introduction itself, research problem is something, a difficulty or a problem, for that there is no ready-made solution available. Okay, and we must find out what to do. That is, the solution can be found only after an investigation. So that is both these definitions clearly explain what exactly it is. Now, a research problem is a statement about an area of concern, a condition to be improved, a difficulty to be eliminated, or a troubling question that exists in the scholarly literature, in theory or in practice, that point to the need for meaningful understanding and the deliberate investigation. So if you look at the overall understanding of a research problem, it is a difficulty or a problem that exists, and when you look at the solution for that, so there is no ready-made solution available, and eventually someone is interested to find the solution for that problem. Okay, so that is the meaning of research problem, and I think of course it is a very first step in the any research process. Okay, now what is the purpose of a problem statement? Okay, so when you state that problem, we call it a problem statement. So what exactly the purpose? If we just look at these three listing purposes here, one, introduce to the reader the importance of the topic being studied. Okay, place the problem into the particular context, provide the framework for reporting the results. So let's understand these three one by one briefly. First one, it tells the readers about the importance of a topic. Let's say I just wanted to find out why most of the youth in this particular region are affected by substance abuse, and in spite of all measures done by a government, but there are many more people are addicted to that. So this is a problem, and for that problem I don't find any ready-made solution, that what are the reasons why people do that. Now, so that is a one problem. So this shows importance. When I say that, many people in that area, by quoting some of the previously done researches that talks about the prevalence or a problem intensity in that particular area, then in which area I'm just talking, let's say I'm just taking an example of a Punjab. Okay, so that is a context, a problem in that particular context. Okay, and how you are going to report the results also somewhat determined by the statement, because initially we have started with that, like what are the prevalence and what are the factors that affecting the substance abuse or causing the substance abuse, what are the predictors that may lead to substance abuse. So when I look at my problem statement, my result and my reporting will also go according to that. Okay, it will be aligned with my statement. Okay, next we'll talk about the identification of the research problem area. Now, one thing is clear, that research statement is all about the difficulty or a problem that you experience. So now the question is where you experience these problems. So that's very simple. Okay, maybe it's your personal experience. Okay, like I just have seen somebody suffering from a psychotic illnesses like schizophrenia, not taking the medicine properly. I have seen that patient with my personal experience. So I just wanted to know the reason for that. What are the factors affecting non-compliance among such patients? So personal experience is a very rich source. Then maybe the professional experience. Yes, of course, your professional experience, that is another important, parameter that talks about this particular thing. Then interdisciplinary perspective, then theory and conceptual framework, literature review, researcher and peer interactions, social trends, of course the very important nursing practice, education and the administration. So let's briefly discuss about all these points. First one, the nursing practice. Okay, in terms of researches, the unanswered question in clinical practice and the desire to improve the nursing intervention have been a source of many researches. Okay, so it's really a big source for research problem. You go to clinical area, you find the problem in that area. Maybe it is related to the patient recovery or patient comfort, or maybe related to the staff, okay, the nurses, those who are working in such conditions. So it's become a great source. If I give an example for nursing practice, let's say if I find that the patient, pediatric patient develop higher level of anxiety when they get admitted in a hospital. So in that particular situation, what happens? The nurses can do more and more researches, or researcher can conduct such an researches how we can create an environment where the anxiety level of such patients can be maintained at the lower level. So of course nursing practices always remain a good source. Nursing education and the nursing administration, that is also another important area that already we have discussed in the scope of research. So same way, the nurse educators study students learning styles, abilities and effectiveness of various technology, very methods in a classrooms, clinical settings and all are the area for research. Like for example, why the students remain absent, why and how we can minimize the absenteeism. That could be a great area for research. Another research is on student perception, their attitude, their learning process, okay, their forgetting, their evaluation system, all that can be the part of that. Similarly, the nursing administration also, how the policies can be framed to improve the nursing practices. So this is a great source, and many researches in a recent years done on this area. Another important source of research is social trends. What is happening in a society? आप सब लोगों ने देखा भी होगा कि जब कोविड-19 का टाइम था तो उस दौरान बहुत सारी रिसर्चेस सिर्फ इसी को लेके हुई, जो कोविड में लोगों का रिस्पॉन्स कैसा रहा, उनका रिएक्शन क्या था, लोगों ने कोप कैसे किया, पोस्ट कोविड इम्पैक्ट क्या रहा, व्हाट वाज द एटीट्यूड एंड माइंडसेट ऑफ द फ्रंट लाइन वर्कर्स, ऑल दैट. तो समटाइम सोशल ट्रेंड्स बिकम ए ग्रेट सोर्स ऑफ प्रॉब्लम. ओके, problem statement. Then researcher and peer interaction. Many times you get an idea while talking with your peers, okay, with the other researchers, especially the beginners. Usually you see the students how they go and talk with their peers and all. Then literature review. Of course, if you have a habit of reading the researches that published by other people, and that especially if you are focusing on their recommendations and what limitations they have come up with, you can have your own researches. You can base your researches on that ground. So yeah, that's a great source. Then the theories. Okay, nursing theories. So theories are an important source of generating the research problem because it includes the number of propositions. When I say proposition means relational statements that talks about the expected relation. Like in a previous example, why the pediatric patient develop higher level of anxiety. Okay, so now there are theories on that. Okay, why this child is more relaxed after giving a chocolate. So there is a theory of reinforcement. So there are various assumptions that described by various theories, and on the basis of that you can conduct your own researches and you can get an idea for research problem. And another important point is an interdisciplinary perspective. Identifying a problem that form the basis for research study can come from academic moments. Okay, what is going in other professions. Okay, like nursing is a very closely associated with the medicine and some other allies. So what is going on in their profession eventually become a source for nurses also to conduct the researches. Personal experience, which already I have told you in the beginning, your own experiences gives you an idea to find the research area or a problem. Okay, your critical thinking will trigger many ideas in your mind and you can conduct the researches accordingly. Now, next, that is very important topic we'll discuss, that is a characteristics of the research problem. Now it is clear that what is research statement, how do we what exactly the meaning of that, how we get it from various sources. Now whenever you talk about a research problem, what exactly is supposed to be the part of that characteristics of a good research, or it is how it is given in your syllabus, it's a criteria. It's a criteria. So I'll just take only one. So good research should be, let me start from, it should be from it should be interesting actually, it should be interesting. Then it should be specific, then it should be novel, empirical, ethical, relevant, current, practical, testable, and feasible. Okay, interesting means if anything that you want to do, it should generate and trigger your own interest. Okay, is one of the most important criteria for a good research. If I am doing a research in that I am not interested, it will not be a good research. It should be specific. I have to focus on a specific point. Like, what are the problems among nurse educators? What problems I am talking? Whether it is their, academic problems, or it's a personal problems, or it is some other related problems. I have to be more specific. Okay, let me know what are the work related stress among nurse educators, or what is the level of moral distress among the nurse educators. Okay, what is the, so that's the thing. Now specific. Novel means, I'll discuss that. Novel means something is very specific, something is very different that trigger your interest into that. Okay, whenever you take a topic or any problem for your research purpose, it should be something that is not probably being done the way you want to do it, and it should always trigger the interest. Empirical, it should be observable. Okay, like suppose somebody is taking a statement how the morality of parents affect the morality of children. Or instead of that, sometimes you frame very non-specifically, bad parents produce bad children. No, bad parents is not a specific, it's a very vague term. Because how you are going to define the bad parents? Bad parenting is a very, culturally defined. So instead of saying that, bad parenting, you just say the morality of the parents affecting the morality of the children. There is a correlation. So there are various tools available to check the morality, right? So it should be empirical, observable, ethical. Okay, research should be ethically correct. Then relevant, it should be to your topic. Okay, it should be relevant to your profession. Global warming is really a big issue, and we are concerned for that, but it may not be relevant to nursing. Okay, whenever you conduct research, it should add into the body of knowledge, either in your practice or in your in your education or in your administration. Anyway, in any of these areas, it should be the current. Now, many researches was done on a COVID-19. Okay, but now it's quite not a current practice. Okay, now if somebody want to study what exactly the people experience during that particular time, that study can be done, but you should see how it is relevant. So you should always check the relevancy. So just take a topic that is a very current. Okay, just don't try to take something that was outdated or done earlier. Then practical means it should be something that is feasible, that can be done. Okay, in that way. So it's all about the 3 point: feasibility, testability, and practicality. Is all about that. Practicality or feasibility, same only, how it is, whether it is possible to conduct that research in that stipulated time. There is no research that cannot be done. You can do any form of researches, but you should always look at the resources available to you. Sometimes I see, like, as a student you hardly get a 1 year, or for PG students only 2 years to complete the entire research project. So if you've taken some research that will give you the result after 5 or 6 years, like longitudinal researches, you cannot conduct such researches, not practical, not nor feasible. Then testable, already I told you, testable means something is empirical, observable. Now, what is a problem statement? Now, there is another important term that comes, the problem statement. A clear statement of a problem should serve as a guide for the researcher in designing the study, which already I have told you. The statement should identify the key variables in the study, specify the nature of the population being studied, and suggest the possibility of empirical testing. So, it is something related to the components of a statement only. So, what exactly? A well-defined research problem typically include the 5 major elements. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about, the components. Okay, these are the components. So when you talk about, there should be a population. The first P is a pi code, actually mnemonics are the pi code. P stands for patient or population or a problem. Okay, if your study is about patients, or it's a P for patient, or it's a population. Population means a group of people having a similar characteristics, and researcher is interested to conduct the study about them. Then the problem is a difficulty that you experience. Second is stand for I. So I means intervention or exposure. If you are conducting an interventional researches, like experimental researches, intervention, what exactly you are going to do with a subject. Like, for example, what will be the effect if I introduce a dietary program for next 3 months among 20 students, so that become an intervention. Or sometimes we don't do the intervention, then it's an exposure, like when you do a kind of a epidemiological studies or non-experimental researches, where you compare the people who are exposed versus people who are not exposed. Then comparison, that is another important point. Comparison should be there in any research statement, especially in the context of experimental researches I'm talking. So comparison, like whenever you have a research statement, the research statement should always have a counterfactual. Okay, I'm introducing a word, counterfactual. Counterfactual means is a group against which you are going to evaluate the effectiveness of your intervention. Like if 20 students were given a dietary program for next 3 months, after 3 months you are going to compare these 20 from other 20 which were not on any of such program or in any of such intervention. Okay, so that is about the comparison. Then outcome. Outcome means how you are going to assess the outcome variable. Okay, your variables. So like as I said in the same example, intervention was my diet program of 3 months. What was the outcome? Maybe the body weight. Weight was the outcome. And when you are going to see that time point, as I said, 3 months. Okay, so these are the minimum elements of what I say should be the part of that. Of course, it's vary from design to design. If the same you ask me for qualitative researches, it would be different. Even sometimes we are dealing with a one variable. Same way, if you are doing some exploratory researches or some kind of descriptive researches, so many of these components would not be there. But ideally, when you talk about the experimental researches or some clinical trials or control trial, then these 5 elements or components should be the part of your research statement. Now, when you talk about the purpose of having the statement, the ultimate goal of a problem statement is to transform a generalized problem into a targeted, well-defined problem that can be resolved through the focused research and careful decision making. Like as you started, the problem is a difficulty in that researcher is interested to find the solution. You have to state that problem. That we call a problem statement. Why there is a need to have a problem statement? Because by stating a problem, you will make it more specific. You'll become more specific, okay? So either like to identify, describe, explain, predict a solution or a situation. That is the purpose of writing a statement. Or sometimes to justify the need for your study by explaining why the issue is important, worth investigating. And sometimes, of course, the very, very important one, to narrow down the broad subject area into a specific issues, ensuring clarification of a research in that you are interested. So basically, the ultimate purpose of any research statement, if I talk about purpose of any research statement, is just to make it more specific, measurable and doable research statement, okay? Now, formulating, how do we formulate now? So this is how the purpose. Now how do we formulate the research problem? Okay, so briefly we'll discuss about some steps here, 3 or 4 steps. First, define a specific problem area. That is the first important point. Okay, so already we have discussed how to define your problem area. Researcher himself should have active participation in selection of the problem. As already I told you, it is not someone else has suggested an idea. They can give you a kind of a suggestion, but eventually it is you to see whether you experience this as a difficulty, whether you find it feasible in terms of your interest or the resources available, your own expertise and other things. But some of the important points you should keep in your mind. Before that, like, you should always have a broad area or understanding of that, okay? So these are some of the points to be observed. Problem should be from a new area. That is a one simple criteria, okay? Avoid overdone subject, hai na? I have seen the student, they are keep on doing the same thing again and again, like pre-test, post-test, having some intervention, knowledge, questionnaire, and then they will have one intervention. So please avoid doing overdone topic. Controversial topic should be avoided. Yeah, that is actually, it is not mandatory. You can do researches on controversial topic as well. But at the student level, try to avoid some of the topic which can lead to some kind of controversies. Too narrow and too vague problem should be avoided. ऐसा कोई प्रॉब्लम जो बहुत ही जिसका स्कोप बहुत ही नैरो है, लिमिटेड है, या कोई ऐसा प्रॉब्लम जिसका स्कोप बहुत ही वेग है, बहुत ही डिटेल्ड है, दैट शुड बी अवॉइडेड. देन सब्जेक्ट शुड बी फैमिलियर विद द मोर importantly feasibility, okay? So aapko, you should have that adequate experience of conducting that research, and you should be confident enough that this particular problem is a feasible, we can do that. And of course affordability, okay, that's another important point, budget concern and all to be considered. That's the one point. So while defining any research specific problem, please consider these 3-4 points. Once you do that, second step here is a review relevant scientific literature, because the literature review should reveal that the scientific literature relevant to the problem area has been critically examined. Because it is not something you should start from zero. No, whatever difficulty you are experiencing, whatever problem or in that you are interested, some people might have done work on that. So please explore that work. So conduct a thorough literature review, and the literature review will help you to understand what has been done on a topic of your interest, what gap exists, and what area that you need to focus. It will help you to generate the need for your research. It will help you to from where to start your problem. Okay, all these points. So there are 2 basic reasons for conducting literature. One is to direct the planning and execution of the specific, because already if other people has done the topic which you are interested, so of course from their experiences which they might have documented in their paper, help you to just plan. Then to define the state of science in a given area for nursing practice. So that is another important topic. So now the third point is examine the potential problem significance to the nursing. That's another important topic that one has to consider. The researcher should pose the following questions. Is the problem area is an important one? Of course, already I have told you this. The problem should be an important one. Will the nurses or the broader medical community or a society will be benefited From that is another important thing that you need to consider. Will the result lead to a practical applications? Will the result have theoretical relevance? And will the study help to formulate or alter the nursing practices and policies? So all these 3 points, all these points will help us to examine the significance of the problem. Of course, anything is to be considered significant when it has some relevance to your practices. Okay. Now the next point is examine the feasibility of research problem. Of course, it's a very important concept, and it's a very important point, I say, because sometimes you are interested in doing something and it seems practically relevant also, and your expertise are also supporting that. Your skills are adequate enough to conduct such researches, but just check the feasibility, whether practically is it possible to conduct such researches. So here are some questions. So I use a finer criteria actually. So already I have told you that various characteristics of research. From there only you can just whenever you evaluate any research statement, just give a consideration such as time. How much time this research will take? Do you have sufficient time to conduct that? Let's say I just want to conduct how this assertive training program likely to change the assertiveness among the students. No, assertiveness is a personality trait, cannot change overnight. You want to conduct the same research in 30 days, it won't be possible. It was an enduring one, right? So you should have that understanding. Do you have sufficient time to conduct that research? Availability of the subject. Sometimes subjects are not available. You are doing a research on a topic which is very rare among the population, or some controversial topic, like it's very you want to study the people, those who survived from a suicidal attempt. So you hardly will find people there because it's a stigma is associated with that, so people don't reveal much about them. First point. Secondly, finding such people would be very difficult because these people don't want to reveal themselves. Okay. Facilities and the equipment and the money. So all these resources you need to have that basic understanding before selecting a topic. Now here some of the things you can ask these questions for feasibility. Can the research question be answered in a current or future clinical empirical environment? Do researcher have access to adequate pool of potential participants? Can he approach them from the population of their interest? Is there enough time to conduct that research study? Does the scope of the study lead to an attainable objective? Sometimes, like if you want to take some researches, like I want to study is there any relation between bad parents, whether they produce the bad children. So in that there is no attainable objective as such. So having that kind of researches. Do the research possess the necessary resources and expertise, okay, to conduct the study? As a researcher, do you have expertise? Do you have the required experience to conduct that research? Especially if I talk in the context of the students, we often avoid giving them such researches that require more expertise. Even though your supervisor in your college, your guide in your college would be having that expertise, but still that is a one important point you need to consider. So these are the important consideration while formulating the research problem. One is define the specific area. Second is review of literature. Third one, examine the potential problem significance. And fourth is examine the feasibility. Next we'll talk about another important topic, the criteria for a good research problem. So even though already I have told you the characteristics of a good research problem, almost similar criteria is here. If some, like generally what do you call a good research? एक वो रिसर्च जो आपके इंटरेस्ट को ट्रिगर करे, एक वो रिसर्च जो प्रैक्टिकली फिजिबल हो, एक वो रिसर्च जो एथिकली करेक्ट हो, एक वो रिसर्च जो रेलेवेंट हो, करंट हो, ओके, या वो एग्जिस्टिंग बॉडी ऑफ नॉलेज को कुछ रिफाइन कर रही हो, चेंज कर रही हो, उसमें नॉवेल्टी हो. Whenever you take a topic, people should assume कि यार what would be the outcome. So that all is the criteria for a good research, right? So there is a acronym FINER, stand for feasibility, interesting, novel, ethical and relevant. Let's briefly understand these criteria. Now first is a feasible. I told you this: adequate number of subject, adequate technical expertise, affordability in times, money, and scope. Second point is interesting. That's the most important criteria that one need to consider while conducting the research. Are you interested in doing that? जब आप कोई रिसर्च स्टेटमेंट लेते हैं, एक प्रॉब्लम को स्टडी करना चाहते हैं, तो क्या वो रिसर्च प्रॉब्लम आपके इंटरेस्ट को ट्रिगर कर रहा है? दैट्स द पॉइंट. देन नोवेल्टी, कंफर्म, रिफ्यूट एंड एक्सटेंड द प्रीवियस फाइंडिंग, प्रोवाइड ए न्यू फाइंडिंग. क्या आपकी रिसर्च पुरानी एग्जिस्टिंग प्रैक्टिसेस को कंफर्म कर रही है, उसको चैलेंज कर रही है, उसको रिफाइन कर रही है? व्हाट न्यू यू आर कमिंग विद योर स्टेटमेंट? Then of course it should be based on the ethical guidelines. Any research, whether it is relevant or is current or feasible, but this is one of the important criteria need to be considered. The research should not cause any kind of harm to your subject or in a larger context to the society. Then the last point is relevant to the scientific knowledge, to the clinical and health policy, and to the future researches. In what way it is relevant? How it is going to affect your clinical practices? What relevance you have, what implications we have for your clinical practices, for your education, for your administration, for your policy makers. So all these criteria you need to consider. Apart from that, in a criteria you should also look at the characteristics which I have told you earlier. Now, what are the types of research questions? So whenever you frame a research statement or research problem statement, you should always have to start with the research questions. So what exactly the research question? Research question is nothing. It is a statement, maybe in the form of a declarative statement or an interrogative statement, where researcher describe the problem, okay, along with its components. Okay, so there are three basic types of research question. Like for example, let me share my own research here. Factors influencing professionalism among nurse educator. So what would be my primary question? My primary question here is, what are the factors affecting professionalism? And there are some secondary questions like, okay, what is exactly the, secondary questions. What are the levels of professionalism? What are the integral factors that enhance or hinder the professionalism among nurse educator? So that kind of primary and secondary questions you can frame. So research question can be of three types. It could be descriptive questions that you can ask. Then it should be it can be relationship type questions and is a different questions. Let's try to understand each one briefly. Now, descriptive question क्या होता है? Describe phenomena or characteristics of a particular group or subject being studied. So ये start होता है what is say. Okay, like asking question, like if I say descriptive question, asking the question to the research participant, like for example, attitude of the parent towards inclusion of sexuality education in the school curriculum. So that is a descriptive kind of question where I describe something. Like for example, what is the prevalence of anemia in that particular college among students? So when you have that kind of questions where your purpose is to describe the variables. Second is a relationship type questions. Here in the relationship type questions, investigate the degree to which two or more variables are associated with each other. Like for example, if I say, what is the relationship between the parental personality and the academic performance of their kids, their children? So that is two variables are there, and we are expecting some kind of relationship, and you want to investigate that. Okay, so that is about the relationship type question. But remember one point, relationship question never establish the cause and effect relationship. Okay, so we'll discuss that in a subsequent lectures, what exactly is the relationship, because there are two types of relationship we have. One is a functional and second one is a causal. What is functional relationship? Like if you change in a value of one variable, or if there are changes in the value of one variable, it will make a constant change in the another variable. Like for example, अगर आपकी हाइट बढ़ती है तो आपका बॉडी वेट भी बढ़ जाता है, तो ये एक फंक्शनल रिलेशनशिप का एग्जांपल है. अगर आपकी हार्ट रेट बढ़ती है तो आपकी रेस्पिरेटरी रेट भी बढ़ जाती है, फंक्शनल रिलेशनशिप है. ये दोनों एक दूसरे के कॉजल नहीं है, कॉज इफेक्ट नहीं है. वी कैन नॉट से दैट योर रेस्पिरेशन इज बिकॉज ऑफ योर हार्ट बीट. नो, यू कैन से दे आर कोरिलेटेड. Okay, so for that is a relationship statement. Whereas the causal relationship always talk about the cause and effect relationship. Like for example, if I say, if you take that particular diet program for next 3 months, this will help, or this will change your, your body weight. So one is a diet program and outcome is the body weight. That is a cause and effect, where deliberately I introduce some intervention. Like example, you can see the study to determine the correlation between the social networking behavior and well-being among the collegiate students. Now, third type of research question is a difference question. That is basically causal questions. Okay, seek to make comparison between or within the group of interest. Okay, often associated with the experimental researches. Okay, like the basic question is there a difference between the control and experimental group? That kind of thing. Like for example, is there any difference in the knowledge among the students who attend this lecture versus who do not attend? So there is two groups and I just want to compare. So that kind of relationship is a difference from. Is there any difference in the attitude of women residing in urban and rural? Okay, that kind of things. So examples, as you can see, effectiveness of sleep hygiene program on quality of sleep and selected cognitive outcomes among nursing students in experimental and control group. So what we did here, there is a program given to a group of students, and there is a group of student but not given any program, and after after a defined time period, okay, then we have observed that cognitive outcome. Okay, what are the cognitive outcome for that? And we have compared the experimental versus control group. As you can see the example here, in a problem statement, we can, as I said, there's a two form of stating the problem. Either you can have a declarative statement. Mostly in nursing researches, we have a declarative statement, and we can have a interrogative statements. So what is that declarative statement format? In this format, a research problem is stated as a declarative statement. As you can see the example, study to investigate the relationship between the dependency level of renal transplant patient and their rate of recovery. So here we are giving some kind of a declaration. Or study to investigate the effect of anxiety and dyspnea among the patient with COPD. Whereas in interrogative format, we always frame in the form of a questions, like what is the relationship between the dependency level of renal transplant patients and their rate of recovery. Similarly, in second example, what is the effect of anxiety and dyspnea among the patient with COPD. So these are the two different forms of stating the problem statement, declarative as well as the interrogative. So that is all about the problem statement. So I hope that this lecture might have helped you to understand the basic concept of this particular topic. Now, as a quick review, let me talk very briefly about that. We have started with this. Research problem is nothing, it is just a difficulty or a problem that researcher experience, and there is no ready-made solution for that, and you want to get an answer for this. We have discussed the various criteria for good problems. So, but overall, it should be finer, it should be feasible, it should be interesting, okay, it should be novel, it should be ethical, it should be relevant. Apart from that, we also have seen that whenever you frame a statement, the statement should, clearly define your objectives. Okay, it should have a various component. Maybe we have, you can follow the pie chart format there. It should have a population. It should also describe about the variables or the intervention. Okay, and it should about the comparison or a control group what we have. Okay, then it should talk about the outcome variables, like how we are going to measure the outcome of the research and what time frame you are having that. Okay, so that is about the research problem or problem statement. Thank you.